Welcome to the new world of animal allies, the doctors, volunteers, pet owners and other surprising visitors who are out there making a difference. In Australia, life at the Kenyana Wildlife Sanctuary keeps the animal doctors busy, while animal helpers on the Shetland Islands are still caring for their most famous export. This week's How To looks at teeth hygiene for cats. And in Animal World, the London Aquarium opens the door to their new pet project, dogfish.
This is the Kenyana Wildlife Sanctuary, where June Butcher and her team take in a range of injured and sick native wild animals and birds.
Oh, dear me, what have we got here?
These spotted turtle doves are typical of the creatures the Kenyana team has to deal with.
They should be fairly healthy, but they need flight practice before they're due to be released. Very beautiful. See how it's putting up its wing as a defensive thing?
Though June can't perform major surgery, 20 years of treating animals has given her extensive veterinarian knowledge. The main idea behind Kenyana is eventually to release all treated animals back into the wild.
This one looks pretty good. Have we got a box that we could put this bird into, people? What I'll do is I'll make this one up. I'll just pop it into this end one here for a moment, just to hold it.
June and her husband have spent years building Kenyana into one of the country's best sanctuaries.
In 1986 we actually built the hospital there, and from then it became not just a rehabilitation place but also an endangered breeding and educational centre. Now, we're just going to look with this one just for a minute, just till she settles down, because she hasn't seen you people before and she's getting a little bit worried about it.
Oh, that's where she's hiding.
Anybody got a guess what it is?
A rat?
No.
A marsupial?
Oh, you're dead right. This is called a little woylie.
The next patient is a large magpie who's had a collision with a car.
It should be snapping back, see, and it's not. It's this wrist that's damaged. I can feel the ligaments in there. That's why she's holding it down like that.
Its wing is broken and will have to be strapped in position for at least a week. It may be an hour or more before June can get round to fixing her wing, so the young magpie is put in a cage temporarily.
See how beautifully this one snaps back. That's how it should be.
Meanwhile, Dr. Chris Warren and Professor Ralph Swan have arrived to assist with the more difficult cases. The major patient today is a sick pink and grey galah.
A pink and grey. What's wrong with him?
She had megabacteria infection. Has been on was very ill, chronic diarrhea, and has actually been on antibiotic treatment for it, and seems to be getting progressively better. So that's great.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
While the vets are washing up, June fetches the sick bird.
Come on, who's a good girl? I'm going to weigh you first. Okay. Cover the head up. That's the girl. I've got her head covered, so you can stick her on the scales as is. Nice and still now. Good girl.
Hey, babe.
There we go.
197.
197.
197 grams. And 192 yesterday.
Oh, that's good. That's excellent.
197.
Wonderful. No.
Is she eating much by herself now?
Yes, she eats continuously. This is part of the problem, because they eat continuously but they just don't absorb what they're having, and that's why we need to tube feed to give her something that's more easily absorbable.
Yeah.
Because she's very thin and she's got a long way to go to put on some condition.
To save the bird, Dr. Chris is going to have to force feed it. It's not all that easy, because she has to try to get the applicator behind the bird's tongue and then squirt the food down her throat.
That's okay. The concept behind the crop tubing is to just go in from the side, over the back of the tongue, and then you can usually see if the tube being passed down
Oh, yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
The feathers moving there?
The feathers moving there?
I can see it, yeah.
And pass down into the crop. And that's very important that you do see that to ensure that you haven't gone down into the trachea.
Megabacteria, Paddy, are rather nasty. They're very, as the name suggests, very big bacteria. And they cause erosions of the mucous membranes of the gut. They can be quite a problem in ostriches associated with
You can feel here. Just feel there. You can
impactions
feel
and things.
Okay. You can just have a feel in here. You just feel above the keel. Just in here, you can feel the crop's quite full now.
Yeah, yeah.
You can actually feel her keel, and you can feel what poor condition she's in.
She's very thin. Poor thing.
Is it easy to get rid of once you've got an infection?
Depends how long it's been going on, and there's a lot of repairs to be done to replace all that mucosa. But she's done well.
Well,
That's good.
Yes, we're pretty pleased that we didn't culture any in the last sample we took, so we're pretty pleased.
And everyone's still got their fingers.
Yes, that's right.
That's the end of the morning clinic, and in Animal Doctors Part 2, June returns to deal with more emergencies.
This is a group of Shetland ponies. They've lived on these islands for over 2,000 years, and in the Middle Ages they were called scallywags, which means a mischievous or uncontrollable child. These ponies were so important that they had a village named after them, Scalloway. It was the medieval capital of the Shetland Islands, 250 miles north of the Scottish mainland. The ponies were once used as workhorses to pull heavy loads. But on this modern-day farm in Lerwick, two brothers, Arthur and Peter Lawrenson, breed them. They have over 26 Shetlands, each with a mind of its own. The Shetland ponies are known for their obstinance and liveliness. But more importantly, on an island where the environment can be harsh, the ponies are famous for their resilience and adaptability, something that pony breeder Jim Smith understands.
Well, the Shetland pony is very hardy because it lives outside all winter, except, well, it is outside all winter, but in the winter time, if there's a lot of snow on the ground, they get a little hay, and that's about all they get. Naturally, what they do is go down to the beaches when the sea goes at the ebb tide, and they eat the seaweed off the beach, which is very good for them.
Other Shetland ponies end up as show champions like this one. She's 5 years old and only 90 centimetres. The tallest Shetland pony will only grow to around 120 centimetres.
The ponies are small in Shetland, and also the sheep are small, the cows are small, the ducks were small, and the geese were small. And I think that's because there was not very much feeding in Shetland. And I think it was the survival of the fittest and toughest, way back centuries ago. And that's the trait that's still in the animals today.
The ponies also help teach young people to ride. This is the Shetland Pony Riding Group. The children learn to ride and care for the animals until they're 14 years old, when they'll move on to bigger horses.
He's quite cheeky sometimes, like he likes to do things and people don't want him to do. He can be good most of the time, and other times he'll do what he wants. so. And he gets quite bored after stunning the days. He's an energetic pony.
Highly intelligent to begin with, very intelligent, because they had survived over the centuries in Shetland on very little to eat and hard winters, so they had to use their brains to find what they had to eat. And they're also very kind, especially the females. If you get a stallion, they can be they can be very tough. And I've seen a small Shetland stallion lay a big stallion, like a Appaloosa stallion, on his back, fighting with him. So they're very tough, but they're also very kindly. They soon tame.
Despite their long history on the island, the ponies were once a much rarer sight. But the boom in breeding over the last 200 years has meant the Shetland pony has re-established its home, not only on these shores, but all over the world. After the break, Animal Allies travels to Brighton to follow some fish as they're released in the wild. And how will June cope with the new emergencies at Kenyana? Dental hygiene is as important for cats and dogs as it is for humans. Animals can contract gum disease, which, if left untreated, can result in loss of teeth. Animal Allies Guide to Cat Dental Hygiene. Dr. Justine Braun regularly treats cats for dental conditions. Today she's going to treat Billy, who's suffering from a mild form of feline gingivitis.
This is Billy. He's a 9-year-old domestic short ML cat, and he's coming today to have his teeth scaled and polished. Dental disease is caused by accumulation of tartar, which is seen as this light yellow-brown colour on the tooth. As in humans, bacterial plaque quickly builds up on these teeth, and if it's not removed, then it mineralizes to form tartar. This tartar then accumulates on the tooth and slowly starts to affect the gum. That's known as gum disease or gingivitis.
Symptoms can include dribbling from the mouth, unpleasant odours, loss of appetite and difficulty eating. If the gingivitis is treated early, Billy will recover. However, if the tartar is left, the tooth will rot and fall out.
As you can see, the teeth are now shiny and clean. And when Billy goes home, we're going to explain to his owner how to maintain this with a little bit of oral hygiene.
Gum disease and plaque build-up can be prevented with a few precautionary measures. Brush the cat's teeth daily using a soft toothbrush and saliva-activated toothpaste.
It's also very important that your cat eats dry food because the crunching action of the teeth helps to remove the bacterial plaque.
Concerned about Tabby's tuna breath? Take a look at this week's Animal Allies How-To. Brush the cat's teeth regularly. Include dried food in their diet. Regularly check for discoloured teeth, red gums or bad breath. At the first sign of gum disease, take the cat to the vet.
Sharks are among the planet's most successful hunters and have ruled the seas unchallenged for over 350 million years. But not all sharks are easily recognised as members of the same family. These are lesser spotted dogfish, and although their name conjures up a variety of images, they are a relatively harmless kind of shark. Bred here at the London Aquarium, Luke Rosser explains the characteristics that set them apart from other fish.
Their primary form of attack or defence, as it were, is their powerful jaws, but they also have a number of other attributes unique to the shark family. For example, they have a very powerful sense of smell. They can detect a drop of blood up to 2 football pitches away. When any animal moves, it generates small electrical currents in their muscles, and sharks as a species, they can pick up on these currents and can hone in.
Like their larger cousins, dogfish are crucial to the stability of the underwater world.
If a fish was either injured or had a very bizarre swimming pattern, then the dogfish or other shark species would spot them very quickly and remove them from the genetic equation. So they work well. They're kind of the gardeners of the sea.
But like many shark species, dogfish numbers are declining.
Tough as this species may be within the ocean itself, compared to the strength of man, they just can't compete. Shark species as small as these are actually victim to fishermen who are out to earn an easy buck. Fins as small as half an inch in height will serve as ingredients for a shark fin soup. So no matter what the size of shark, they're all at far greater risk from mankind as a species than the reverse.
To help reducing numbers, the London Aquarium has established a dogfish breeding programme. Some of those bred in captivity are kept at the aquarium to educate the public. The remaining numbers are nurtured until they're ready to be released into the wild. The first step in breeding dogfish is to collect their eggs. Known as mermaids' purses, these eggs were laid by mature dogfish in the main tank. To protect and camouflage them from predators, the dogfish attach their eggs to seaweed, where the embryo is left to grow.
The yolk is all they have to survive on for 6 months, so that's basically their entire food store in one go, and they're just very slowly drip fed, basically, getting larger and larger inside the egg case until they finally outgrow it and make a break for freedom.
The dogfish in this tank are now 12 months old and mature enough to survive in the wild. The time has come to reintroduce them into their natural environment. Luke has prepared a container with an oxygen supply to transport them because they have quite a journey ahead. Today, 3 dogfish will be returned to the ocean off the south coast of England. The team travel to Brighton, where it's hardly beach weather. Dogfish are commonly found in these waters, as well as the northeast Atlantic and the Mediterranean.
Introducing any animal back into the wild, the conditions are going to be a lot more rugged and dramatic than they'd be used to.
Before the dogfish are released into the freezing ocean, they must be acclimatized to the temperature. This is done by adding cold seawater to their container.
But these are very tough little creatures, so I'm sure they'll do quite well in adapting back to living in the wild.
As dark approaches, the dogfish swim their last laps in captivity.
So it's almost time to release these babies now. Just one more bucket and the water chemistry will be equal to that they'll be swimming in the sea. It's just not healthy to go through such a sudden temperature change. And these fish obviously will have enough to contend with, trying to get their bearings in the open ocean without going through any kind of physical trauma as well.
Finally, it's time to send these small sharks on their way.
The dogfish were last seen swimming very quickly in that direction, so they're heading straight into the English Channel. So from there, the world is their oyster.
Though only 3 more dogfish swim free, during their lifespan of around 10 years, they could add hundreds of young to their species' dwindling population. While June has been in surgery with the vets, more injured animals have arrived at the Kenyana Wildlife Centre. The little bird died during the night.
Just found on the road. He'd obviously been hit, because you can see that eye is sunken there. And it said he had a wing injury. I can't see anything there. I think he's probably been hit. But he's very thin, so he's obviously been sick before he was hit. You can see his keel there sticking out. Yeah. Probably not enough food around at the moment. So if he's a juvenile, they have a very rough time this time of the year, trying to find food when it gets cold and wet. It's a bit sad.
June takes it into the surgery to try to find out what happened to it.
I'd just like to give him a once-over, just to see if we can find anything else the matter with him. Look at that beautiful wing and all the markings on it, isn't it wonderful? Definitely no wing injury. I think he's just got weak. He loses his pectoral muscles here for flight and he becomes inaccurate. and he swooped down and he's been hit by a car on this side of his head. I'd say that's the story. He wouldn't have been any good anyway because he's lost his eye. It's a shame. And these raptors have got to have good eyesight, otherwise they just can't cope. Beautiful bird.
But even though June can't save all the animals that are brought to her, there are definitely some cases that make it worthwhile.
It's a juvenile and it just does not cope with the really cold and wet winter we're having at the moment. Not a lot flowering, and they just need the food. Well, they're nectar eaters, so they need all the flowering plants. And he'd be having trouble, I think, and little insects, tiny insects. In fact, you can just see a bit of yellow pollen there on his, around his beak. You see how his feathers are stained with that yellow?
A man had found this injured bird in his garden.
The dogs alerted him that the bird was on the ground, and he went over and found this bedraggled-looking thing. So he has done the right thing too, which is wonderful. The public are getting more educated on how to look after these tiny things. Anyway, we'll get him into the warmth. That's his first priority. See how he goes.
Now that cities are extending further and further into the Australian bush, more animals become injured because of human intervention. The work of June, the vets and the volunteers that support the Kenyana Wildlife Centre is just one way of re-establishing the balance.
In the next programme, the new world of Animal Allies continues when Animal Ally Jess Gower performs some vital surgery on Lucky the dog. And in Animal World, the majestic rhino takes centre stage.